Hey guys, welcome to the For the One Studio Insider. Today I am at Spark Media Conference, and we have had the chance to sit with a lot of really cool people that have come to enjoy this conference. And today I have with me two great guests that are here as a partner with Spark Media Conference. So welcome,
Thank
Kyle.
you so much. Yes, good to be with you.
And Parker.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell everybody kind of how y'all are connected and why you're here at Spark Media and what y'all bringing to Spark Media.
Yeah, so we are with Rooted Conferences. We help college students find their way to a church faster. So we say we connect students with students and students with churches. And so we do that by hosting events in college towns for freshmen to find their way faster. We see that the numbers are insane on how disconnected students are with their faith and with the local body. And so we're here being featured by Spark, but really glad to just be able to share how God's moving on college campuses and what he's doing. And so Parker and I get to help lead the team as we are growing into more campuses and into where God is leading college ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And Parker, you are involved in a church, correct?
I am, yes.
Yes. And you have your own podcast as well.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about those two things. Is Rooted part of that church, or does it come from the church, or how does that work?
So Kyle and I got connected fairly recently. So I'm a fairly new team member to Rooted.
Okay.
And so we got connected through a mutual friend, and immediately Kyle and I just became instant friends. And I was like, I want to hang around this guy.
Yeah.
And through that kind of course, was birthing conversation of, man, how can we take Rooted to the next level? What does that look like? What does that mean, especially kind of right now in this post-COVID world?
Yep.
So Rooted is kind of a separate piece to the church that I have a part to play in, and as well as the podcast. So the podcast is called Thinkless.
I like it.
Ultimately, we have a lot of different guests on. Kyle's been on it before. We've had a lot of our friends and people we don't know and people we do. Ultimately asking the question, what are people not thinking enough about? Because there's a lot of things, of course, that we just do subconsciously. There's a lot of things that we're just in the routine of that we're not really taking like the right level of thought to. So ultimately, how can we get to a deeper level of thought with some of these things? So podcast is called Thinkless, and then the church is here in the Houston area. My in-laws actually pastor the church, and so my wife and I moved here a couple years ago from North Carolina to kind of help be a part, and I oversee a lot of the different ministries and functions of the church. So.
And what's the name of the church?
It's called High Point Church.
High Point.
High Point Church, and we're
Y'all
about...
are down south, right?
We are, yes. We are in Friendswood, Texas, so about 30 miles or 30-ish minutes south of downtown and about 30-ish minutes from Galveston. Yeah, we're kind of smack dab in the middle there.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really love what your ministry is doing.
Thank you.
I really do. I mean, the epidemic that's going across our young people is wildly crazy right now. Really the world, but I mean, especially focusing on the younger generations and being able to connect them with churches. I have a daughter, and I have a son too in college, but I have a daughter that's about to go to college, and so all her friends are graduating this year or graduated last year.
Oh, wow.
And that's probably one of the top questions that I get from a lot of the moms, like, hey, do you know a church? Do you know this area?
Sure.
Do you have any church that you could recommend? Because everybody's so concerned that their kids get connected to the right church too, like a good fit for them, so that they really find roots in a church.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to get them rooted in their faith and rooted in a local community, and really stand on their own as a believer, not just under mom and dad or just with youth group or youth choir or whatever it may be. We find that students who can walk out their faith on their own will be able to lead themselves and their peers, and so we're so grateful for how God's led our journey to different schools in the Midwest. Unfortunately, we don't have any campuses in Houston, although there are 5 yet.
Thank you.
There are 5 amazing institutions in the city of Houston, and so we're trying to navigate what does it look like to be at a commuter school, what does it look like to be in a mega city. Our specialty has been big school, small town, and so that might look like a town that's actually smaller than the campus, and so there's a really big need for connection at any level, whether you're in a Houston area or California or Kansas City, Missouri, where I'm from. And so there's some really, really great partners that we have around the U.S.
As a studio, we have a podcast called Set Life, and we interview people from all walks of life of the industry, right? Of the media industry. So how do you see that media is impacting your ministry and your cause and what you're, doing with Marion nonprofit with media?
Yeah. So when we started Rooted 11 years ago, social media was obviously was just growing into new spaces, and so we leveraged Instagram, Facebook, all kinds of different platforms for college students in 2011 and 12 when we started. We found that was like our bread and butter. We had students signing up through Instagram and registering and boosting and different things, and now 11 years later, it's very different. And so we are, it's a grassroots model. And so just making sure we stay in front of people in every facet has been really challenging. But we still, working with young people, media is at the forefront of what we have to do and think about, both at the conferences and then year round, because we're not a year round ministry. We don't do week on week ministry or life on life ministry like a crew or other more national models. We are a touch point and a bridge to send them. And so you can't be a bridge if no one's willing to walk across. And so social media is huge, and media as a whole. I don't know what your thoughts are on how media plays a role.
Yeah, well, I think even we're kind of in this unique space just culturally too, where you have to be present on socials, but also there can be sometime that disconnect between the relational, like the in-person, the proximity relational, where we can be so dependent upon the digital that we miss out on the personal and in person. So I think even just some of the conversations we're having with some of the Gen Z, because the millennial market was a very different demographic than the Gen Z, and of course kind of exploring this now post-COVID, where we were so reliant upon everything. It's like, how can we lift the head through the digital streams, lift the head rather than everybody just down? How can we engage like this too in conversation? And how can we bring that together? And what does that look like? And we don't necessarily know, haven't exactly found the right medium, but we're exploring those in-person connections just as much as we're trying to meet in the digital spaces too.
I think, and I'd like to get your opinion on this too. Do you think that this generation is more hungry for authentic, real, and a actual connection more so than we've seen in the years past?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Resounding yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they want connection. They want authenticity. They don't want production. They literally see right through media. And so even just making sure we stay present on how we engage and the things we say, the things we're trying to promote, because it's even when you try to promote something, your real message is coming through. And so making sure that there's a purity to what you're trying to engage in. And so we want to make sure that authenticity and connection is coming through, because that's the heartbeat of the ministry and the model. So if we don't represent that well in person, we won't, definitely online. So it's been a really, really amazing journey to watch even students who were in the ministry 10 years ago now helping lead in other places, and now going, hey, I'm a young adult. How do I now do the same thing for other young adults? So it doesn't stop at college. It actually starts there, because at 18, that's when our personal faith journey really has to kick it into high gear.
I'd heard a stat one time that I think it was 8 out of 10 kids fall out of their faith in their first year of college.
Yeah. Yep.
The 2 that don't were at a Christian private school beforehand. It was like, I don't know if I believe that stat. That was a Christian school, I think, stat. But
no, Barna does have a study that
it is.
Over 7 of 10 students will walk away from their faith.
Yep.
Now, that stat doesn't also unpack how many are coming to the faith, and so it's not all doom and gloom. There's a really exciting time of revival on college campuses.
That's what I think too.
We are fired up about how God's moving at both Christian and non-Christian institutions, and people really stepping out, professors, faculty. There's really, really amazing things happening. So that stat doesn't quite explain that there's actually those who are coming to faith and reigniting those who maybe have left. And so it's really interesting.
As much as I feel like the world is, people 40 and older world, is all hating on TikTok and on everything, right?
Kids these days.
I know. They're always getting their phones. But I can tell you, I'm raising that next generation, and I'm seeing these girls that are going viral with their Bibles and like color coding them and preaching, basically.
Yeah.
They are
People going viral
evangelizing.
for prayer,
Yes.
for
Yes.
prayer, for
Yes.
praying with people,
Yes.
praying over people.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's amazing things. So it's not a sad world. It's actually really
So this
exciting.
can be a good tool.
Yes.
It can.
And
Absolutely.
that's why I've got into the business of
Amazing.
media,
Yes.
is to be use it as a catalyst for good change.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
there's one rule around the studio is like, we welcome anybody that wants to be a bright light to the world. Like anybody that wants to be a part of telling good
Yeah.
and being good.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sign us up.
Sign us up. Like, we want to be a part. We want to help. You know, and so I don't think the media is bad. I think
totally.
the media has, through COVID and through the elections and through a lot of things that have happened, has gotten deemed as fake news and bad, and TikTok's taking over these kids. Now, I think everything unbalanced
100%
is bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Everything in
you know,
moderation.
I mean, if you eat the whole box of cookies, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But it just tastes so good.
Yeah,
does.
I know.
really
It's
does.
still bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that kind of concept of like, let's just don't throw out everything for the one bad thing.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
God's redeeming and using
Yeah.
every fashion of media, as we're finding, and
Yes.
and those who are bold enough to stand and be a pioneer and to pave a way.
Yep.
When no one was praying on TikTok live, or no one was going, live on Instagram
Yep.
to do Bible teaching or prayer requests and things. So it's really, really interesting. The boldness goes with authenticity.
Yes.
And so because there's an authentic generation coming, the boldness is also coming.
Yeah.
And so we're just blown away by the people we get to work with. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. We're bringing For the One Studios bringing a film to the market, Multiplied.
Oh, yeah.
And it is hitting
We're
that.
fired up.
Yeah, it's so good. But it's hitting that Gen Z age, and it's crazy the kids that see it and the just igniting fire that comes from it. I mean, they're just, they're just
all in. Yeah.
sold out.
Yep.
You know, they become like, I want to do something, because I think they've all been in this place where everybody was isolated, everybody was segregated, there wasn't any community. We were doing community through our phones.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's just think about this. Like, how many Zoom calls did you do, and versus how many Zoom calls do you do now?
Yeah.
I swear, I think
Yeah.
I live
Still
on
do
Zoom.
some. Still do some
Yeah.
now.
Oh, I
gotta do a little bit.
Yeah, you
I
gotta do a little bit.
do them like all day, every day.
I do not envy you.
Yeah, no,
yes.
I'm just like, can somebody please sit here and let's talk, you know? But that totally shifted culture.
It did.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, it really did.
and what we deemed is okay now, and how we do life now. It's like everybody's like, we want to go back to normal. I was like, normal was gone
Yeah.
Yes.
What is
Like,
normal?
many years ago in this still,
yeah.
you know. So this is our new normal, and how do we put balance to it? How do we use it for the best of our abilities? You know,
And maximize what
Yeah.
we're able to do and go
Yeah.
further than we could before.
Yeah.
Similar to, we just got to see the trailer, so
Yeah.
I'm fired up about
Yeah.
what God's going to do with that movie.
Thank-
But just really, it's inspiring to see what God can use, even just like just the mustard seed. You know,
Yeah.
just taking something and running with it, whether it's an idea, a business, a podcast. If God calls you to it, you have a responsibility to steward it. And so I
Yes. Yeah.
think the Multiply trailer I saw has me thinking about stewardship of
Yes.
just the even to document something, let alone lead something,
Yeah.
is amazing. So
yeah, and I think people talk a lot about, Hollywood and bashing on Hollywood, and I'm like, that's not my stance. My stance is always like, I just want to create excellence, and I want to create good with no matter what industry that I've been in. But now that I'm in this media industry, like, I want to create high level excellence media and storytelling, and help other people do the same, because that's what we should be focused on. We should be focused on not how we need to change something. And my faith is uber important to me. Most people that know me know that about me. And I say my best friend's pretty cool, and he's in the saving and changing business. That's Jesus's job, and we're in the people loving business. And so we're called to love first and bring his attributes to the world. And we can do that through media. And I think if we stay focused that way, instead of trying to see what we can change, but we just focus on how we can be the change and we can be the movement. That's the slogan of the film Multiplied, is be the movement.
Yeah.
Because that's where our focus has to go. And with this next generation, showing them, like, we don't have to talk about everything that was or bad. Like, let's change our thinking to what we're going to be and what we're called to be, you know, and move that direction.
And I love God in that way because, you know, he moves in so many different ways where it's like how he moved then, he's going to move in a new way now. And so even just with the movie Multiplied, being able to just create awareness of like, hey, the Lord is moving.
Yes.
In a very real way.
Yes.
And so just for people to have eyes to see and see like, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
How can I be a part? Once again, as you said, be the movement. Like there's an action step to that. There's a call to that. There's a challenge to that.
Yes.
And there's a requirement.
And
ultimately, I feel kind of, you were saying stewardship is like, I feel a responsibility to be able to help steward this movement because as a believer, I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Whether I'm there in the part of the film or there in that place or not, I'm a part of it.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful responsibility, but it is a responsibility.
Yes. And that's the hope. All of us and everything we're doing is you hope that you can challenge other people. I say the only thing that I really want people when they walk away from anything that we've produced or touched is a new perspective, maybe a different thought, see something differently than you did before. That's where we make change. Awareness is first. We've got to be able to see differently. And that they had an experience that was positive and good. You know, uplifting, enlightening, you know, hopeful, brings hope to their life, is inspired. They're inspired to do something better in your life, whatever that is for you, right? That's different for all of us. And be challenged by it. You know, we're crazy people that like to be told what to do. You know, we do. We really want to be told what to do. And so it's like, hey, we're asking you, be a part of this movement. We're asking you to find a good church and get connected. They're rooted. You know, I mean, we're challenging you to do something. We're challenging you to see from a different perspective. Step out of your comfort zone. Be encouraged. Be inspired. Be bold and authentic. So I love what you all are doing.
Thank you.
I do.
We're honored to get to do it.
Yes. And one thing before we go. Okay, because you also, you're a jack of many trades that are really, really good. Just have to say.
Kyle was amazing. Can we just say Kyle's
I know
amazing?
he is.
Guys.
Like, don't blush now.
Yeah, exactly. Don't deflect.
But that is hard too, not to deflect. But so other than you do catering, on the media side of things, you have traveled around the world. One quick story. Tell us how you went to 13 countries in 40 days?
40 days, yeah.
Pictures and a
virtual reality documentation. Yeah, so a ministry in Dallas said, hey, we really want to give our donors an experience that they've never had. We can't take them to the jungles of Madagascar or the deserts of Sierra Leone or all these other amazing places, and we need you to go. And I said, like, I'm just from Kansas City. I love taking pictures. I love traveling. I love people and missions. And so God kind of opened up this opportunity. And so it was originally a 75-day trip, which if anyone knows anything about travel, that's far too long. And so they compressed it down into 40 days. And so I got to visit 13 countries and be with local pastors and traveled alone with 40 pounds of gear only. So I just had a backpack only for 40 days and got to take video in churches, church plants, villages, the jungle, got helicoptered in, we biked in, we bussed in, we boated in. It was bananas, really, really fun. And while that 360 camera, which is a dual lens, so it's two-sided, I couldn't be in the film. And so I had to place the camera, set it up, and then I would go explore for anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes every time we'd move the camera. And so I got these amazing photos that I would just get home each night, back to wherever I was staying, and it was just like, these photos are insane. Wow. Like, these are Holy Spirit anointed photos telling stories, and all, I did the best I could keeping up with stories and names. And so about 3/4 of the way into the trip, I really felt like God gave me this vision of these huge images, like imagine a blank warehouse, a white warehouse with these larger than life photos, bigger than a person, where you'd almost have to kind of look up, and I always say look into the photo. And so for me, it was just an amazing opportunity. And so pitched that idea to a gentleman when I got back from that trip, and he's like, I'm all in. I was like, oh, I was just sharing the idea. I don't even know what all in means. I just wanted to tell you what God showed me. So that gentleman funded the opportunity to showcase these photos.
Oh, wow.
And so the ministry that sent me got their 360, their kind of VR work, and they loved that. And then I was able to utilize my photos in some really creative ways. And so that show now is called Come Alive, because it tells stories of those who came alive in Christ. So I've been able to travel to 51 countries now on top of those 13, or included in those 13. And so God just had me in some really incredible places, some really dangerous places, and some really amazing places. So really thankful. But God just is doing so much truly around the world that we can't even ask or imagine.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the audience listening, how big are we talking photos? Because I have seen them, and it's an experience. It's not like a photo.
Full-blown it's an experience. They are 10 feet tall, so 2 times larger than an average person, and so it's really, really large. And then they range from 10 feet wide all the way to 18 feet wide. So a portrait of a person, the person actually feels larger than life. And then on the close-ups of a portrait, the photos of like the eye is actually larger than a dinner plate. So you can physically see me taking their photo in the pupil of their eye, because it's so large. And so God just used those stories to just awaken people to how he's moving, and just the joy radiating off of someone's face that used to be a former slave and now is a pastor, or someone who was born into a war-torn area and still exudes joy. God is really full of peace and joy and so much life. And I think we miss that in our materialism and in our distraction. And it's not anything we intend to do. It's just the way we're set up on this side of the world.
Yeah. It's really, really great. And what a great way to show, to have that experience, because it is, not everybody gets to go around the world and have those experiences, and not everybody's called to.
No.
So let's say that too, because, not everybody is called to go to those parts of the country and be a missionary or even witness and stuff like that. So where you are planted was no mistake.
Amen.
And what you do have in your basket is what you are supposed to use, and the reach in what you have is what you're supposed to do. So if you are not called to go, then you help send people to go. And it's super cool to get to see that experience be brought here for those people to get to see and feel like you're a part of, because the images are so huge on both sides of it, and you're walking through it, and you're you're reading, all the stories
and seeing their images.
It's super great. So
it's been an honor to get to go to those places and tell stories that would literally be untold. And not that I'm anything more special than the next guy, but it's just God has positioned me to be able to do that and to travel. And so, like it says in Romans 12, if you're called to teach, then teach. If you're called to lead, then lead. And so if you're called to photograph, then if you're called to start something, then start it. And so for me, it was a unique assignment. And now I've been able to see over the last many years how he's led those stories and being able to be, single or travel or do things that others can't do, and can't leave a family behind for 40 days. Whereas I could kind of pack up and go and tell stories that for the first time are going to be told about Madagascar or Burkina Faso or countries that I didn't even know. I was looking at the list going, I didn't even, never even heard of that, but I will get a visa for that place, and I will gladly show up unannounced and stay with a pastor that I will hopefully get to meet someday in heaven again, because I probably can't go back to that village in a helicopter. So God's just really, really special.
Well, that's awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for your time here today and
we're honored
sitting
to be
with
with you.
us.
Yes,
And
very honored.
and best of luck on Rooted and all the kids that you're going to reach, and the parents that you're letting sleep better now. The whole journey and your church and all the things that you're doing, Kyle.
Thank you.
And Parker, thank you so much for your time here today. And we have another great time, a couple of great days here at Spark Media. Hope y'all make some great connections here and get some more interviews on some more podcasts, because there's lots of them here. So how can our listeners get in touch with you and Rooted?
So first and foremost, rootedconferences.com is a great resource for us. It points all of our churches and parents and students to one place, rootedconferences.com. And then my personal website is kylebuthod.com. And that's
Might
a
need
great
to spell that.
it's Kyle, Kyle, and last name Buthod, Buthod. And so if you just look up Kyle B from Kansas City, you'll find something. But Kyle Buthod has all of our all of ministry and business and photography. And then for Thinkless.
Yeah, Thinkless Podcast on Instagram, thinklesspodcast.com. You can go to my personal Instagram as well, which is just Parker Rich.
Okay.
So yeah,
Parker Rich.
Yep.
That's
all
a good
things,
name there.
All things Thinkless and High Point and personal, and a lot of pictures of my son.
The cutest kid in town.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he's
awesome.
amazing.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, guys. And y'all go check them out. Throw them some love. And we'll see y'all on the next Insider.